Yes, we are back. You're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Mabalde. Now let's move to the last segment of this program. And we have the Gambia Immigration PRO, Mr. Siman Low, in the studios with us. The Gambia Immigration Department intercepts migrants. I mean, migrant situation in West Africa and other parts of the world is really alarming. Every day we intercept, but still people are moving from one place to another, especially the dangerous journey using the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, so Mr. Simon Lowe, is it ISP or?
It's Inspector.
Inspector. Yes. I am used to Mr. Yes, so it's good to have you here. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and then thank you so much for having us again on the Gambia this morning.
So yeah, so let's go through the interception of these migrants. Can you take us through?
Thank you so much. So just as a usual routine at the GID level, we're almost very much active towards trying to mitigate irregular migration. And viewers can also remember that last year we have been doing the same thing. We had close to 700 migrants who were intercepted last year. And it is in the same spirit that we also commence the same operations this year as well. So from the first quarter of 2025, that is January down to March alone, we've had about 4 interceptions. And this number would show you that it is at an increased level, and then it's alarming. For instance, in March alone, we had 3 interceptions. On the 3rd of March, we had a case whereby a boat was abandoned at around Bijilo behind the Monkey Park. And it was believed that that boat had about 75 migrants who traveled from the Gambia going down all the way into Senegal. But then along the way, they had an engine failure and then they could not continue, so they had to decide to come back to the Gambia. And when they came back, based on this environment that they came in, some of them fell sick and then they had to rush to the hospital. So when we were informed, we went to the scene and then we were able to at least have 21 migrants who were at the hospital to seek medical attention. And the second case we also had was on the 17th of March, that is around Bara. On the 17th of March, we had about 34 migrants who were also intercepted. And the chief organizer of the particular event was a Senegalese in this case. Bara had been a hot spot when it comes to irregular migration. Last year, we had similar occurrences. And then if you look at the way the Gambia's landscape, there are certain places we see as hot spots to irregular migration. So Bara is among those areas. So in this particular scene, we had 34 migrants who were also intercepted. And then we were also able to find the culprits who were involved to be arrested. And then we're also now taking further efforts to try to prosecute them in the legal way. The third one we had in the same March was on the 21st of March. So for that particular case, it was a bit different with its dynamics because we have not met them in a boat going out, but then they were all harbored within a particular compound, in a 3-bedroom apartment. So what happened was a neighbor who lived close to that compound had observed some uncommon movements within the compound there. And that was when he informed our operations commander in West Coast, in Brikama, that something might be fished at that particular spot. So on that 28th of March, our officers had to go there, surveil the entire environment, and observe what was happening. And then we noticed that they had so many people in that compound, a very small compound with just 3 bedrooms. And you had about 75 people living in the same compound. So the following day, we had to engage with the task force committee of Brikama, that is the PIU officers, together with our GID staff to also go and raid that particular area. So when we went, we found that we had 75 people. And out of this number, only 4 of them were Gambians. The rest are all non-Gambians. And the saddest part was the fact that the organizer of that particular event, presumably Abdou Diop, was also a Senegalese. So it tends to now ask a question, why do we have non-Gambians using the Gambia as a transit to engage into irregular migration? There are factors responsible of that. But then at our level too, we think it's, despite just focusing on those factors, we still have to mitigate the practice of irregular migration. So most recently, just on the 31st of March, as we closed the March itself, going into April, we had a 4th case. And there we had also 34 migrants who were also intercepted by the PIU staff we have around Brufut. And then those were also harbored in the compound in Brufut Sanimentering. And then they were transferred from there to the boat where they can lodge and now depart on the Canary Islands. So these particular cases all occurred in the month of March, 4 different cases. We're talking about 160 people all being intercepted. Now, we would tend to ask the question, why is it occurring in common cases? Is it the fact that Gambians are still with the mindset that we can only make it when we go out there? Or do we have to also consider the repercussions of us traveling into the Mediterranean Sea? We have seen families falling apart. We have seen people who have lost their children because of irregular route. And our work is not just to control the borders, but also to save the lives of Gambians. So I think it's important we see this as a national call and find best mechanisms to at least mitigate the practice of irregular migration.
All right. So what methods, does the Immigration Department use to monitor, migrants?
Well, through our interagency operations, because it is not just a work of the GID. When it comes to security, we have to work together as different agencies. For instance, the GID works together with the Gambian Navy because the Navy are usually engaged into sea patrols. We also work with the fire rescue services together with the Gambia Red Cross societies. So our primary way of being able to track most of these cases, first we are able to draw a mapping of all the hotspots in the Gambia that are believed to be regular migration spots where people can easily take a route. And then now we keep an eye on those areas. That is why recently they've been trying to now maneuver to run away from those areas and start new different mechanisms.
Okay.
You will see they will sometimes have to take a boat into the sea and lodge there for some days. Now they'll be taking them in bits and pieces to join the regular boat. So we have been working together with the Gambian Navy in our sea patrol, our border patrols, everything had been ongoing. And it is through this, together with the community support, because we have to say that if it is just us, it may not be a very easy ride. But people also are very meticulous. They would observe that, okay, a particular boat is moving, they will give us a call. Or while it is just been happening, before it advanced to a different stage, they can give us the tips and we now work on those intelligence. So intelligence sharing, together with our interagency cooperation, had been very much key in our strive to reduce irregular migration. But then again, we also work with other partners. We work with GID Civil. We also work with COP Gambia that have also been supporting us when it comes to operations of how to reduce irregular migration.
So in this operation, especially the recent one, you've said about 160 have been, intercepted. How many minors and women were involved in this case?
So it's sad. If you have a first-hand experience with migrants, you tend to ask yourself, how do we even think as Gambians? And it's not just, let's say, as West Africans itself. Our case on the 21st of March, we had a whole family, the husband and the wife, together with 2 kids. They are both minors who are taking the irregular route. And if you speak to them, they will tell you that even though this one had been foiled, I will still try again to move.
Wow.
So the case we had on the 21st, we had 4 minors and 4 women who were all involved in this particular case. And the women, in fact, seem to be more active in this route if you talk to them in most cases. We understand that there are factors responsible still, but then it's sometimes risky to put a whole family just because of your mindset you're going to travel somewhere. You are not sure if you're going to make it or not. And you have seen manifest people dying while they're going through the back way. So it becomes a bit difficult. We have seen minors and also women taking up the route as well.
So you've said there are factors involved. So what are some of those factors driving these people to take this risky journey?
So the factors might be multidimensional because, as we all know, it's irregular migration. But then I would have to first touch on what do we think is the reason why most non-Gambians are coming through the Gambia as a transit point to engage into irregular migration. The key factor on that is the lack of legislations that controls irregular migration. If you go to other countries like Senegal, you have very firm laws that tells you that this is what is going to happen if somebody engages into irregular migration. We're talking about the organizers, not the victims themselves. But if you come to the Gambia, it's a different case. So because of that legislative gap, they now would see it as a point. Instead of now trying to go through Senegal, let's use the Gambia as a transit point, then we move into irregular route. But again, if you coordinate and also ask most of them, why are you leaving? Some will talk about unemployment. But again, in that part, we sometimes have to also ponder over this. Why do we have most non-Gambians coming to the country, engage into so many activities? Why are they able to fend for their living? But still we see Gambians who will sit and say there is no job in the country. We would agree that the number of youths we have, it's quite high, that the jobs may not be adequate, but then at least we should be able to find a way to at least engage ourselves onto something. But then the mindset that there are no jobs in the country and that we can only make it if we go out there, it's also a concern. So to me, I believe the main factor is just a mental mindset.
True.
If we're able to change how we think and how we perceive issues, it might change.
So, Mr. Inspector Lowe, so these foreigners that use Gambia as a route, if they are intercepted, what happens next? Are they deported or are they still maintained in our country?
So we wouldn't use the word deportations. Gambia is part of ECOWAS, and we also implement the free movement protocol of ECOWAS as well. And as you may know, we also have the ECOWAS biometric ID card, which gives all ECOWAS citizens the right to move freely within the ECOWAS bloc. So what happens is when we intercept non-Gambians, we have to engage with their embassies or their consulates. That this number of Senegalese, for example, have been intercepted because they were engaged into irregular migration. Now, we will engage with those authorities, and now we decide. They have two options. Those of them who want to go back to their country, we will help them to go to the border and hand them over to their authorities for them to go back to their country. Now, some of them might still want to stay within the country. In that case, what we do is we make sure that you do require documentations to be a non-Gambian. If you're from Senegal, you have to at least be given a particular pass to stay here for at least 90 days. And after 90 days, now you can also have your non-Gambian ID card. But then we have to always engage with the authorities before we take any other actions on this matter. Just of recent, the case we had on the 21st of March, we had two cases. 34 of them who are from Guinea were taken to the Jiboro border where they have to go back to the state because they choose to go back. We also had about 30 of them who are from Senegal. They were also taken to the Amdalai border for them to also go back home. So it is always based on their consent. It is always key to note that the migrants are not culprits. They are victims. They are victims of the system. Now, our main concern is those who organize these irregular routes.
Sure.
Because those are the ones we see as perpetrators in most of these cases.
So how often do you capture those people? Like, anytime a boat is intercepted, you will always hear, okay, they escaped, they're on the run. So
I think the only occasion when we had one of them on the run was the recent one of 21st of March, that is Abdoulaye Diop. And Abdoulaye left before we went. Maybe he had been informed that we were coming and then he ran away. But in all other cases we're talking about, the case that we had at Bara, 4 of them were all arrested. Now when we arrest them, remember we also have laws to go by. We cannot keep them for more than 72 hours without them being charged. So what we can do is prosecute them, and that now becomes a legal cost. So in most occasions you put them on bail, and now you continue with the court to decide their fate. But like I said before, the legislative gap too, it's a bit it's an impediment to us. Because even if you prosecute them, let's say for instance, the highest a person can be charged, could be fined by the court is about $50,000, the highest. In just one trip, irregular route, you can have millions of dollars. So if I am able to get 4 million in just one intercepted boat, and now I am charged to pay just $50,000, it becomes a venture for me. I would go back to the same routine and engage in the same practice. So we have been prosecuting them. All these cases I'm talking about, we have been able to get the culprits and they've been prosecuted. But now it becomes a legal course we have to go by and wait for due diligence to also be observed.
It's the immigration's duty to intercept migrants.
Yes.
But the immigration, are you thinking along the line of organizing maybe sensitization programs to tell these people, okay, it's dangerous to use this journey. Immigration have the right to intercept you. Do you educate them?
The Gambia, the GID had been going through so many transformations. If you've been following our activities, our greatest accomplishments recently is community engagement. Just yesterday, our director had an engagement with the Commander-in-Chief of GID Civil. And throughout his highlights, he made mention very clear that the primary key element of being able to mitigate this menace is through community engagements. So that is why at the GID now we have what we call as the community engagement unit that works together with the PR office. We go to communities and talk to them. We engage on radios, on TVs and everywhere. Currently we're hosting a radio show weekly on Star FM, and then it's visual talk about this kind of issues. Just recently we had the MOU hosted there to talk about the effects of irregular migration. So we have been engaging the public. But again, I want us to also note that most of those who are going know very well the repercussions. They are aware. They have seen broken families. They have seen loved ones who've passed away. But they still want to take the risk of going. So no matter what we're doing, I think it has to be a collective responsibility, because it is a family member who will take out money and give it to a boy to say, please go to the back way.
Is that part of your mitigation strategy to reduce this menace?
What exactly?
Talking to families, you know, because like you said, they come from a family, and sometimes their parents will give them money. So is that part of your sensitizing people?
Definitely. It's part of our strategies, because when we, in fact, when we have interceptions, most of those we intercept, their families will also come to the ground. So what we do before releasing them is we cancel them. Talk to them that, okay, this and this have to be averted. And we at least provide a way for them to at least be focused as Gambians. Now, those family members too, we engage them, because they are the ones that finance those people to travel. So we discuss with them too as to how best can they at least better utilize the amount being given to those migrants to at least engage into something more meaningful than taking the risks of irregular migration. But then it's a Gambian mindset, like I said before. Despite all efforts, it sometimes falls in deaf ears, and at the end, they will still engage.
They still move. Yeah, so let's talk about partnership with international organizations. I mean, to be able to mitigate the effect of irregular migration. Is immigration also partnering with other organizations?
Yes, we're partnering with a lot of organizations. Remember, irregular migration becomes a global concern. It is a concern to the EU, a concern to ECOWAS, a concern to most other regional blocs within the world. So a key belief is that the best way to reduce this menace is through cooperations between states and also regions. For instance, the Gambia is part of what we call as the COP Gambia project. The COP project is where you have many West African countries all trying to devise mechanisms to reduce the irregular migration route. The initial phase had ended recently, and now we're in the second phase, COP Project 2. We also work, that particular COP project form is implemented by the Spanish National Police together with us. Now, we also have the GID Civil that have also been helping us when it comes to operations, when it comes to trainings and capacity building. So we've been working hand in glove with them on these particular cases. Another important partner that we work with is DECAF, because like I said, we have laws that need to be in place. In 2023, DECAF was able to support the GID to develop an immigration bill. The immigration bill had a specific segment that focused only on smuggling of migrants, because then we noticed that there is a gap. And then for us to close that gap, we have to first get a law that empowers us as a department to be able to fight against that. Now the bill is developed, and that bill, if implemented and if approved, will be able to now give us that empowerment as a department to be able to easily fight against irregular migration.
So what is delaying the bill to be passed?
Well, all necessary procedures from our end have been done. The bill had been submitted to the ministry even before 2024 started. And then we had also had some engagements with the ministry to make sure they understand the content of the bill, to draw a comparative analysis between the Immigration Act of 1965 and the bill of 2023. And at this point, all our faith now rests on the political will to post the bill to the cabinet. If cabinet makes the approval to, it goes to the parliament, and from there it becomes enacted. But then as we're speaking, it's dragging, because we were hoping that by 2024 we'll be able to at least have the reform we were all hoping for as a department. But at this particular point, it's still at the ministry.
So what, Inspector Seaman, what are some of the challenges or the hurdles that are making it difficult for the interception of migrants? Finally, before we close this segment.
Mr. Ba, I think despite all accomplishments, our greatest challenge are our challenges, if that in fact makes sense. But then I think our greatest challenge is legislation, like I said before. I wouldn't have to cite the fact that we cannot make any meaningful change when we're empowered by legislative frameworks. Now, apart from the legislative framework, we also have a challenge with budgetary constraints, because the GID, as you know, works on documentation. We provide ID cards, passports, permits, there is continuous. We also issue visas and enter clearances. It is also our job to make sure that we make sure all our systems that are being used also run effectively. Now that added to the irregular migration campaign too becomes challenging. So usually our budget is not able to finance most of our engagements. And because of this budgetary constraint, we sometimes find it very hard to work effective. For instance, you're talking about community engagement. We have actually a work plan this year where we want to engage with schools and communities with regards to irregular migration. It is still on the table, because without the financial muscle, we cannot implement that. So we have good ideas, very active officers out there, a very directed department with a leader that is very much focused, but then if the financial muscle is not there, it becomes hard to work on that. Another challenge we also face when it comes to operation is mobility, vehicles. As we speak, the unit that controls migration has only one vehicle that is functional for operations. Now, when they have, for example, interception that is made, let's say in Bruford, that vehicle will be the one to travel all the way to Bruford. Now, imagine if you also have to dispatch our investigative team to go to Tangi again for that particular part. So it becomes quite difficult for them to always work. So these three impediments are a great challenge to the work that we're doing in trying to mitigate irregular migration.
Lolly?
Yeah, that's it. I think if our governments are serious, they really need to empower institutions that are really trying to do work like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you, Lolly. Thank you, Inspector Seaman, for coming. And we hope to engage you more in the future and keep updating the public as to what the Immigration Department is doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so viewers, this is all we have, and join us tomorrow again for another episode of QTV This Morning. Enjoy the rest of our program. Have a wonderful day.